All right, welcome to another Buzz Beat. Thanks for joining us today again for another episode. This is Richie, and we are live on YouTube, and I'll be joined by Spencer. We haven't seen in a while, Brian, and we've got a fun episode lined up for you guys as we will be predicting which Hornets players would hypothetically finish the highest in some of these end of season voting awards. So, Spencer, how's it going, bud?
Pretty good. Can't complain. Still on a little bit of a emotional hangover from the primetime Carolina Panthers disappointment last night. Brian and I were just kind of bantering about it, though. I'm not worried about Bryce long term. I think he's going to be fine. But yeah, this roster is a mess, and the injuries are piling up. So, but I am good. I am very happy that fall is upon us. Number one, the weather has finally gotten a little bit more mild. You get football back, and we're within a month, just a little over a month until we get Hornets basketball on a team that I think has a chance to be a little bit frisky. I think it maybe outkick their expectations a little bit. So I'm good.
Yeah. It does. I don't know about you guys. I if anyone, it would be y'all two or the people listening along here. But I did start to get the twinge. This happens to me every like August, September, where I'm like, man, I could use like a February Hornets game right about now. Just some like 8-point loss at Cleveland. Like I could use that with a post-game pod coming after it, which is like real sicko behavior. But I think if you've been doing this for long enough, something about habits, like they're hard to kick. And so yeah, I start kind of itching for it a little bit. And I think there's like enough new pieces, plus hopefully a full, with LaMelo and Mark Williams, hopefully a full season of those two guys playing together. It's like there's like enough stuff for even a bad, mostly irrelevant team, I think, to sort of like get relatively excited about.
It's funny you mentioned outkicking the expectations, Spencer, for the Hornets, but I feel like that was the same conversation that they had for the Panthers, and a lot of people are just losing their minds over this 0-2 start. So we'll see how that plays out. All right, so here's what we're going to be doing. We're going to be choosing one player, and I guess if you want to mention a honorable mention, we can do that as well, on the Hornets roster that would potentially, hypothetically, whatever you want to call it, finish the highest in the following end of season awards. We're going to go through the most improved player, defensive player, sixth man of the year, the Hustle Award, which I didn't realize was an actual award, and the most valuable player award. And we're going to go ahead and get started here and just kind of rattle off some names. I'm sure there's going to be several of these awards that we're probably going to have a consensus on, but maybe there's some ones that are debatable. And we're going to start with the most improved player, the most recent winner of this being Lauri Markkanen in Utah. And I think, having that change of scenery probably helps some things. I will say that no Hornet has ever won this award, and it's typically for players that obviously make drastic strides on the court. And it's not really designated for someone who's coming back from injury or maybe a suspension. There might be someone on the Hornets that fits that bill. But I think this was probably one of the more difficult ones that I had to predict. I think because you have to choose a player that, number one, will play, a good amount of minutes and is going to get the spotlight on them. Number two, you have to have a player that has some gaps and maybe some room for improvement. So for this one, I debated between a couple of players, and maybe my thinking is just wrong on this, but I'm going with PJ Washington as the player on the Hornets that could be hypothetically the top player to receive most improved player votes. I think that his defensive versatility will continue to evolve. And I know that voters don't necessarily look at the defensive side, but maybe some of those defensive metrics continue to swing in his favor. I think his on-ball offense will continue to take another step. He talked about in the media press conference when he re-signed about working on the mid-range shot. We saw what he did with the floater, and I still think he has room to grow as a rebounder as a guy that can finish at the rim. And so I can kind of see it. I can see a world where PJ Washington takes some steps. And I think, too, the 3-point percentage went down last season. So if he can bump that back up to 38%, 39%, I think maybe voters would look, favorably upon PJ.
Yeah, I think PJ's a good bet for those reasons, or at least again, I think the preface being all
right.
are going to be deep long shots for these awards, but yeah, I think PJ's an interesting pick for that. You saw some of the high posts, the elbow. They ran a lot of stuff through him as like a hub last season at the elbow. Not just Mason Plumlee is like a front court guy that was getting those kinds of touches. PJ got a lot last year and got to create off the dribble a little bit more and just was involved in a bunch of different ways offensively. It's been fun to sort of like go back and rewatch some of their games from last season and just sort of like remember PJ kind of did a little bit of everything for Charlotte. And that was kind of cool to see, especially after the 21-22 season. Like he just became such a either pick and pop or spot up shooter, especially in that like small ball center role. And all of a sudden he started to get to do a little bit more last year. And including some inverted pick and roll, 4-5 pick and roll with him as the ball handler. But I like PJ. I'm gonna go LaMelo Ball though. I do think this is an award that it does maybe. I'm not sure. I can't remember all the past winners of it. I did look up earlier. Devontae finished 5th in the 2020 race for this. Devontae Graham. But I do think guys who get considered for this at least can be all-star players, like young all-star type players that make a jump. You know what I mean? And I know, you were just sort of talking, you touched briefly, Richie, on the injury factor, maybe not being something that gets baked into these awards all that much as far as the candidates go. But I just think last year, LaMelo only played, 30, 35 games. It wasn't his best season by any stretch. He's young, he's really good, he's getting better. It's just like if he could play 75 games, make a jump, and the Hornets are like frisky and in playoff consideration or contention or whatever, then I could see him being a candidate for this award as well. So I will say LaMelo Ball, assuming but it's contingent on a full season of health, some growth as like a finisher, a pick and roll creator, just like a half court offensive creator, and the team being, around 500 and, in the play-in situation.
Yeah. Go ahead, Spencer.
Yeah, no, I mean, I thought long and hard about both of these guys. I ultimately landed, same as you, Richie, PJ Washington. I think the new contract certainly helps, kind of feels like a fresh start here. Last year we saw some huge development from PJ. One of you guys already mentioned it, from the mid-range, his floater, kind of his in-between game, just got a lot better last year. Yes, the 3-point percentage went down, but, injuries last year, that roster was depleted. Career high usage, effective field goal percentage was down. I attribute a lot of that to just injuries. Like this roster really depended on PJ to score a lot, and he just wasn't ready for that kind of workload just quite yet. Assuming health is always a wild and stretch assumption, right? We've learned that with the Panthers so far this year, and you date back to last year, and Miles is gone for reasons that don't have to do with injuries, and then LaMelo gets hurt. So if we assume that we turn the clock back 2 years, 2 seasons, PJ was really rapidly improving as a player on both ends of the court. And I really think he's got a chance to be a 17, 18 points per game type of player on some positive efficiency this year. I think you're going to see that 3-point percentage tick back up. I think you're going to see that usage tick a little down. But I think you're just going to see him be more effective on the offensive end from all sides of the floor. And, bringing Miles Bridges back into the fold allows you to use a guy like PJ Walker in very creative ways in a lot of different positions. Adding Brandon Miller into the rotation, I think, really benefits how you can use PJ Washington as a small ball 5, or a forward, depending on your lineup. So I just think he's going to have a really, really good season. And I would be remiss not to mention, wow, what a contract for Charlotte. I kind of don't understand. I mean, I guess I understand. Like the money just dried up; it wasn't out there. But I did not expect this to be the finality to this situation. I thought he was going to have to sign his qualifying offer and effectively be expiring again, and come in, and which is a good deal for Charlotte. Whatever, he'd come in motivated, try to get a new contract. But this is a sweetheart deal for the Hornets.
I do kind of wonder, like, if Miles wasn't on the qualifying offer for this season, if the Hornets would have maybe even been from their end even more sort of like into doing that with PJ, but not wanting to basically have two guys on these like 1-year contracts turning into unrestricted free agents, next off season. But really the Hornets had all the leverage in this too, like pretty obviously. So not too surprised to see it play out the way it did. I think at times this summer I got like a little angsty, wondering when it was going to happen, but process worked out. And I mean, like for PJ, like he gets paid like a decent, not amazing number, but a decent number, and like he gets to hit unrestricted free agency at 27. So like in the prime of his career, and he gets to get a third contract. So like if he plays well, if this all goes well, he gets to sign another contract that's 8 figures, right? So it can kind of work out for everybody. And I guess the sort of the one trade-off, that PJ was able to get was that it's a 3-year deal, as opposed to getting that 4th guaranteed year for under team control.
Exactly. The one other player that I did kind of consider for this award was LaMelo Ball, Brian. And I also wonder sometimes, like, is this award more for some of the role players? I know that some of the star players do end up winning this, but a lot of times it feels like it's like, Ryan Anderson, just some random player that just wins most improved. So
I think I guess there's a case just to nominally throw out, like, because second year guys, it's a little weird, Nekias Duncan and Steve Jones talk about this on the Dunker spot, just like considering second year guys for this award, because it's like, again, the criteria is a little nebulous, but second year guys should be getting better, and they'll probably be getting more playing time than they did the first year or whatever. But like Mark Williams you could just see him, if he has a big year and he also starts 75 games or whatever, and he's going to put up huge rebounding, blocks, field goal percentage numbers if he does that. Like, I don't really see him as like a candidate for this, but given that his rookie season flew like a little under the radar, at least on a national level, I could see like the possibility of it, though I would not bank on it.
All right, let's switch it over to the Defensive Player of the Year award. I think this one, to me, was one of the easier ones for me to decide on. Maybe the second easiest of the bunch. Mainly because, well, first off, there's not a lot of defenders on the Hornets to choose from, so you've got that narrowed down. But mainly because of the position. Like, when you look at the winners from this award, they are typically centers. You have exceptions like, Marcus Smart or Kawhi Leonard, but it really takes a special season from, Cody Martin to be considered a guy that's going to be up there to sway voters. So for that reason, I do think that Mark Williams would finish hypothetically the highest on the Defensive Player of the Year award. The shot blocking, the pick and roll defense, more nimble than, you give him credit for. He uses his hands as a shot deterrent. He uses his hands as someone that takes away the pass off the switch. His steal percentage was pretty good for a big last season. So I think that's like one of the bigger reasons why I'm leaning towards Mark is because he's a center, but maybe you could make the case for Cody Martin as one of the better defenders on this team. But I think sometimes they just look at the steals, the blocks, like the counting numbers. And I think Cody Martin sometimes shows up in some of these statistics that aren't really like flashy by any means. So do you guys have any thoughts about this in terms of which player you think would be the best candidate to kind of receive votes for Defensive Player of the Year?
Spencer, why don't you jump in here first?
Okay. I mean, I think you're right, Richie. I think Mark Williams, just history tells us, like, yeah, he's a center. He has the best chance. But I was going to say Cody Martin. Okay. The Hornets have him also on a new contract. Unfortunately, we really didn't get to see much of any of Cody Martin last year, but his defensive impact so far in his career has been consistently very, very solid. I would be very, very surprised if he received one vote for this award, obviously, but like for the sake of being different, I think he has certainly the chance to be the most impactful defensive player on the Hornets. I mean, it's between him and Williams. Nick Richards, yes, in the spot backup center minutes, I think he's got a chance to be very impactful for Charlotte too. But like if we can get 70 to 75 healthy games out of Cody Martin, he's our best wing defender right now. There's no question about it. I mean, he has been a disruptor there, even a little undersized. But although he's only 6'5", at least on paper, I tend to think he's a little bit bigger than that. But he can slide up a position. He can slide down a position. I do expect Charlotte to use him in a lot of different lineups in a lot of different ways against dynamic wing scores this year. And I'm expecting a good season out of Cody Martin. I mean, he's one of those guys at this point in his career, it's empty the tank on defense. He's the coordinator. He's the middle linebacker, if you will, on that end of the floor. I think he understands that role, and he plays that role for a team that needs it badly because we just don't have wing defenders, really. We don't have dynamic wing defenders. So I'm expecting a pretty good defensive year from Cody Martin.
Yeah, I mean, the one other dynamic or plus or semi-plus wing defender they was Jalen McDaniel. They shipped him out at the deadline for basically nothing halfway through or towards the end of last season to Philadelphia. I know we didn't touch on Cody during the most improved player, conversation, but he does seem like in line for a bounce back year. Who knows if there's some sort of like sibling rivalry after seeing his undrafted brother have the huge playoffs for Miami. And also Cody got paid like last summer too. So I'm sure he like wants to try to live up to the 4-year, $32 million deal that he got a season ago. Like he can at least feel like some security in having that too. So Spencer's point about maybe him emptying out the bucket. For me though, I will join Richie in saying Mark Williams here. Charlotte's like final third of the season improvement defensively, both in half court and in transition. There were a lot of people that played a role in that. Dennis Smith Jr., JT Thor, PJ Washington, maybe even Gordon Hayward here and there. But I think Williams was really, really good as a rookie center defensively. During the last episode that Richie and I just recorded on Mark Williams, at the end of it, I read off some of his advanced metrics from the B-Ball Index. He was among the best post defenders in the league last season, among the best screen defenders in the league last season, and he was among the best rim protectors in the NBA last season. And obviously he gobbled up rebounds at a massive, massive rate. So it's like, if you can prorate that out, I mean, I know it's not like you can't just like, click and drag, but if you could prorate that out for, him playing 28, 30 minutes a game or whatever, whatever the rotation looks like between he and Richards platooning at the 5, and then also have Williams play a full season, then he could be like a very impactful defender, despite the fact that he's not getting a lot of help from the guards and wings on the roster. And he would be putting up the kind of like numbers that make just sort of like people that cover the league like turn their heads. Like obviously we watch all the Hornets games. The people listening to this pod watch all of them or most of them or whatever. But for the Sacramento beat writer that's voting for this, or the Phoenix, based writer that's voting for this, like Williams could conceivably have like big time rebound and blocks numbers, which would also make guys sort of, maybe can like dig deeper into his numbers or pay attention when he's on TV, that type of stuff. And I also think there's just like low hanging fruit for Williams to get better. Like I think more reps working with Steve Clifford, and then also just like him getting stronger would be something that would allow him to be a more threatening post defender and an even better like positional rebounder too. So I'll say Williams, like if it's not this year, I do think at some point in his career, he has the chance to be like considered for this award. This is probably a little premature, but I'll go ahead and say Mark Williams best shot as far as current players on the roster.
Did you guys give any thought to Ntilikina at all? Did that cross your mind?
Frankie
Yes,
Smokes.
Frankie Smokes, of course. Yes.
Yeah.
Frankie Smokes, Cody Martin for that's the ticket I'm voting for next year.
That's a good poll. Like he really can heat up the ball and defend. So he probably deserves at least the tip of the cap. It's just this isn't like a pushback on Ntilikina. I do kind of get the feeling that like I think Marcus Smart totally deserved to win DPOY 2 seasons ago, but there's been so much. I do think there's been like legitimate blowback from some people that cover the league that think that have sort of like made their case for, hey, big guys by these advanced metrics, they're more impactful defenders. We really shouldn't be giving this thing to a perimeter defender unless it's like so exceptional. I don't know. Maybe I'm reading into that like a small sample of like potential voters or media members a little too much. I could potentially see some people like overcorrecting on votes and really like leaning more towards the Jaren Jacksons, the Rudy Goberts, just like the special front court defenders as being the guys that like are more strongly considered for this award, whether that's like right or wrong. And to be clear, like I thought it was awesome that Smart won it 2 years ago. So I'm not knocking that. I could see that being something that like feeds into how this award is viewed, at least for the next few seasons.
All right, the third award, Sixth Man of the Year. I think this one's tough because Clifford really could configure the starting rotation in like 3 to 4 different ways. So it's more of like, who do you think is going to be coming off the bench? So I think I have a far-fetched one, or one that seemed kind of out there, maybe being a little bit different. So I'm going to hold off on mine. Hopefully you guys don't take this one. But Spencer, I'll let you lead off. Who do you think, potentially could be Sixth Man of the Year? We keep saying potentially, like these are hypotheticals here. Go ahead.
Yeah. No, I really struggled with this one. So you nailed it, Richie. I mean, when you really start looking at all the different options Clifford's going to have with his starting unit, it's exciting. Again, this is one of the main reasons I think this team has a chance to be kind of frisky, is that they're just deeper than we're used to. I'm going to say Gordon Hayward. I think that if it was up to me, now I'm not Steve Clifford, and this is probably not the decision he's going to make, but I think Gordon Hayward is well suited to come off the bench. Like putting Brandon Miller in that situation or putting Terry Rozier in that situation, I just don't think is advantageous for the team or the individual. And I think Gordon Hayward can come in and quarterback whatever kind of unit you can cobble next to him and be competent. Now, I understand. I can hear it now. You're paying a guy $32 million to come in, to be your sixth man and pay 22 minutes. Like, whatever. It's a sunk cost at this point. Who cares?
Yeah.
So I think that Hayward would, number one, I think he would take that role on proudly. I think he'd do a nice job with it. I think that if you're Gordon Hayward right now, you can look yourself in the mirror and look at the roster you're on and say, this is my time to kind of be the mentor, the growing up in the room, if you will. And so I think, honestly, this is the kind of situation, if I'm Hayward, I look at and I'm like, man, I could really value myself. Like, I could increase my value pretty quickly across the league, playing a role like this, and maybe scratch out one more long-term contract in the NBA. So that's my vote. And the more I think about it, I'm pretty excited about this for Charlotte.
Yeah. Agreed. I have Gordon Hayward as well. I think there's a couple different guys you can make these sort of like outsidery cases for. Back in the 21-22 season, when Charlotte was like trying to hold together a play-in or a playoff spot, Hayward was hurt. They shifted the starting lineup to LaMelo, Rozier, Bridges, PJ, and Mason Plumlee. And when Hayward was, maybe eyeing a potential return, one of the ideas I floated at the time was bring Hayward back as the sixth man, like let him quarterback the second unit because that starting five was playing pretty well. So like let Hayward come back, let him play in some hybrid lineups, let him coordinate and organize the second unit as both a pick and roll ball handler, a screen setter, a post up guy. It made a lot of sense to me. And I think it's also something that Richie floated during this past season as well, like Hayward as a potential, in some sort of like, when altering rotations around, maybe moving Hayward to that 6-man role. So it's something that like on this pod, like we've kicked the tires on this a few different times now. And now it seems like perhaps even like the logical progression, because I could see Charlotte starting, LaMelo, Rozier, Mark Williams. They seem like locks, and then like you get some combination of like Martin, Bridges, PJ, and so all of a sudden, like you could just see them starting that, and then maybe you start with a little bit more defense, and then you could with Cody, so then you can bring Hayward in off the bench, depending on how you're building out that lineup. Like I see it as like a legit possibility, and I love Spencer's point about Hayward's he's 31, 32, somewhere in there now. Like I know he has the injury concerns, but like when healthy, he's still like a very useful player. And it would be awesome for him to think that like, yeah, like look, in the context of Charlotte, he has the ability to be a top 2 or 3 guy, a top 2 or 3 offensive player on the roster or whatever. But if he wants to play on a team that has a chance to like win games, I think he should be considering like his role going forward to be like a super sub. And that's easier said than done, you know what I mean? But look, this guy's made an all-star game. He's made a ton of money playing in the NBA. Like he's got some acclaim. He's got a ton of cash. Like if he wanted to prove himself to a contender, this would be a good opportunity for him to say like, no, like I can play 60 games and carry a second unit offense. I spot start, like I close some games. I'm still a very useful offensive player. So like, I think there's kind of a prove it component to it as well. I don't imagine Terry Rozier coming off the bench, but I guess there's some world where like Clifford opts to start Cody Martin at the 2 next to LaMelo, and Rozier just becomes like the bench gunner. But like I really don't like him in that role all that much, to be totally honest with you. But I think there's that, and he would put up points. Like he's sort of like, to an extent, he fits like the archetype of like the like 6-man, combo guard bench scorer. I think PJ has the potential to sort of do it. Like I think that would be very contingent on like the Hornets being good, and him being like an efficient offensive player, solid defensively. And I think it would be really contingent on the Hornets like winning a lot of games. So he'd be sort of like helping them win and close games down, and just be like a, coming in and the starters play better when PJ's in, like that kind of stuff. And I guess there's like outside shots for like Nick Richards and Cody Martin, but no, if I'm going to make my case, I'll go with Gordon Hayward.
Interesting. None of you guys mentioned my guy. I'm, even though I suggested that Gordon Hayward come off the bench, in this scenario that I'm getting ready to speak about, he doesn't come off the bench. So this one might seem far-fetched, but I'm going to go with Miles Bridges. I think there's a world where Bridges doesn't play the first 10 games, and the Hornets just kind of keep that going, like in terms of just like helping him build up his stamina. He's on a 1-year contract, so there's not a lot of certainty involved with him. Maybe he's used as the super sub off the bench, and they just stagger his minutes, with the starters. He gets closing minutes in most games. We saw what he did 2 seasons ago. That was his best season. All the unassisted buckets that he got, he improved on his playmaking. And I think that typically, if he can replicate that, he'll probably get starter minutes. But I do see a world where he does come off the bench and they just stagger him a lot. So again, like I said, I did suggest that Hayward comes off the bench, but like there could be a case where he stays and Miles Bridges is the one that is the one that comes off the bench. So any thoughts on that, Spencer?
No, I mean, it's certainly not crazy, and it's a big mystery how Charlotte will use Miles Bridges, especially early in the season, right? For all the things that you just mentioned. I think he's going to add a ton of utility to this team. I just think he's a better fit with the starting unit.
Yeah.
For multiple reasons. But I wanted to mention 2 more things. Number one, and Brian started to touch on this, but Gordon Hayward coming in and kind of helping quarterback that second unit, I think could become very, very quickly a natural fit for him at this point in his career. Number two, like there's always 2 to 3 to 4 desperate teams contending every year. Yes, $32 million expiring is very difficult to move. But if kind of the scenario BG and I were talking about comes to fruition, I wouldn't say it's all like if the Hornets are 5 games under 500 or 8, whatever, kind of out of playoff contention as we reach trade deadline. Don't rule out the fact or the idea that the Hornets could move Hayward. And anyway, so I wanted to retouch on that. And the other thing is, I think Cody Martin and Gordon Hayward coming off the bench together is like super exciting to me. I'm here to listen to the people that think Martin should start. I'm not one of those. But I like the more I look at this roster, I'm just like, man, there's just more depth here than I was like prepared for. Now that we're a month away from the season, I'm starting to like really pay attention. So those two coming off the bench, I think can really create some problems for your opponent.
I could also see like last thing I'll say on Hayward as like the bench potential role. I could see that also. I could see Hayward, especially if you get to some maybe not like true full like 5-man second units, but units that have like 3 or 4 more 3 plus or 4 second unit guys. I could see Hayward being like a guy that helps out Brandon Miller a little bit too. Hayward as like a guy that can post up, can pass.
Yeah, Brandon Miller, like the first sub out of the starting unit kind of situation.
Or even those guys playing together too. You know what I mean? Like I just think sort of similar to LaMelo's rookie season, the way Hayward helped as like a screen setter, post up guy, like just like a matchup guy because he can pass and shoot and post. It's not identical.
That's what I meant, BJ. Yeah, like Brandon Miller, first sub out of the starting unit, and then coming back on with that second unit, so he's getting minutes with Hayward.
Exactly. Like I can just like see some ways that it works out. And again, one of the things that probably should be said too, and this was part of one of my like initial reasons for 2 years ago why I thought Hayward kind of made some sense as a 6-man, is like it just makes it easy to limit his minutes too. And like, I mean, he's going to get hurt at some point inevitably, but like it wouldn't hurt to put like a little bit of caution. Bringing him in the second unit allows you to like, I think, massage that a little bit more easily too.
It's a good point. Yeah.
All right. The next award, the award that I guess I just haven't heard of, but I guess it only started since 2016-17, is the Hustle Award. And actually Marcus Smart has already won this thing 3 different times. So, when I think of this award, I think of like the scrappy nature of these players that are out there, and they're looking for deflections. They're looking for screen assists. They're looking for loose balls. They're looking for charges drawn, like all that type of stuff that when you go to NBA.com, you see all those hustle stats. And I think when you look at the Hornets roster, you probably have to consider Richards, PJ Washington, maybe JT Thor, Cody Martin. Those are the guys that are going to be in the conversation. And there's a part of me that wants to go Cody Martin. I know Spencer's been hyping him up on this episode, but there's a part of me that wonders, like, I don't know if I have enough confidence that he will be like healthy and fully recovered. And that's like in the back of my mind, whether or not he's going to be playing, 70 games this season. So just to be different here, I'm going to go with Nick Richards, a guy that led the team in screen assists per 36 minutes last year, even over Plumlee. He was first on the team in charges drawn, which actually was just like a piddly number. Like it was like really low. Like nobody drew charges last year. Now that is something that Cody Martin does well. He's not much of a deflections guy, but I think that he's always around the ball. Like with shot contests, he's always around the ball with offensive rebounds. He's going to be very active on the offensive glass. I probably think Cody Martin is the better answer here, but part of me wonders, is he really going to be fully recovered and healthy to go? So I'm going to go Nick Richards.
I'll go Cody. I think for me, I mean, you sort of laid out. I'll go short because you sort of mentioned it. Just like if you watch this team, Cody Martin makes winning plays. He has from the get-go. I kind of think, I know we touched on his perimeter defense earlier. I kind of think the thing he does best defensively isn't just sort of like one-on-one defense or screen navigation, like that type of stuff. I think it's I think it's loose balls, long rebounds, taking charges, chase down blocks. Like it's this sort of whether he's creating events or not, sometimes he is, and he is capable of doing that. But it is sort of like the winning play, the Hornets version of Marcus Smart, just like getting to 50-50 balls, regardless of like where it is, contesting shots, that type of stuff. So I'll say Cody pretty convincingly, but to Richie's initial point too, like I could see either of the centers on this roster, Williams or Richards, just because blocks, deflections, rebounds, that type of stuff, like them possibly being mentioned for it. But for me, it's Cody pretty convincingly.
All right, I'm going way off the map here, but I think you guys are going to like this. All right, so this guy kind of reminds me of like the F-35 that was flying around unmanned on the Carolina coast the last few days, but I'm here for it. Summer League, like I'm just in love at this point. I have no idea what to expect. He comes in the game, it's going to be a complete controlled chaos or just uncontrolled chaos situation. And this is also assuming he actually like carves out a role. But Nick Smith, I'm so excited for him. Like he's a mix between like Dylan Brooks and Clarkson. Like I don't even know like where to place him yet. Like he's a crazy, energetic scoring machine, like at times, and also just everywhere at all times. Like I'm really excited to see what he becomes, and that could be nothing. But if he carves out a role, I guarantee you he's going to be one of those guys that comes in the game and just changes it. He's just going to change the energy of the game. He's going to change the flow of it. He's going to change the pace of it. He's just like Charlotte really hadn't had a player like this in a while, and I'm really excited to see if he can carve out a role. Steve Clifford's the head coach, so I'm not like bullish that he'll carve out a role.
Yeah.
But if he does, I'm telling you, he's going to change games for this team.
Yeah, I think like Smith is interesting because it's like I think there's potentially a role for him because I think like the center position is pretty like tied up. No matter what Kai Jones says, I think the rotation's pretty solid there, and there's just like a lot of like sort of like wings, hybrid wing types. We haven't even mentioned JT Thor yet, which it's a little tough because this is potentially a big year for him as year 3, and there's just like a lot of guys that are kind of ahead of him. He had really like by the end of last season solidified himself as like PJ's backup spot starter when PJ was out, which didn't happen often. But so we'll see if Thor can carve out a role. But like right now, the backcourt is like LaMelo, Rozier, Ntilikina, and I mean I guess Cody Martin, but like he can obviously float down and be in the wing room too. Ntilikina is a hell of a defender, but he's so strapped for offense.
I mean, the opportunity's there, BG. And I was really impressed. Like the most impressed I was of anything that Nick Smith did offensively is to create or not really a good creator for others, but he's not incompetent there. But like out of a pick and roll, like that dude could ball. He could score. He can make stuff happen.
Richie and I did a film pod on him a couple of months around Summer League play that's worth digging up if people listening to this haven't done it yet, where we kind of get into Smith and some of the stuff he did with the ball at Arkansas.
I think Spencer was on that too.
And in Summer League. Oh, okay. Yeah, that's right. Forgive me.
Yeah. But
yeah,
so for a while.
But I think that's like, again, there's an opportunity, there's a pathway. There just is like an opportunity for a bench unit ball handler. Do you know what I mean? And I could see that being Rozier in some hybrid lineups. I could see that being Hayward in some of these scenarios that we were just mentioning. It's just hard. Like Smith is young. There's going to be pressure to play like Brandon Miller, who's a rookie too. And it's just hard for me to see Steve Clifford with a team that's like trying to make the playoffs, like playing multiple rookies in the rotation, plus like a second-year guy and Mark Williams. And I could see at least in year 1, Smith being like pinched a little bit, unless he just like plays great and it just forces the coaching staff's hand on it.
Yeah, I totally agree with you, BG. I mean, this is way off the map, but he is the type of guy that would almost give a coach like Steve Clifford no choice, right? Because that guy's he's gonna gamble more than any other young player in the roster. Maybe top 5 or top 3 young players in the league. That's just how he's built. You could see it jumps off the film immediately. You watch him play, you're like, this guy's just going to go in there and make stuff happen, for better or for worse.
All right, the last award I think is the easiest one. We won't spend too much time on it. I've got a fun segment planned after this that Brian and Spencer are unaware of, but the most valuable player, clearly LaMelo Ball. He raises the ceiling and the floor of this team dramatically when he's out there. Obviously, his injury history is something to be a little bit worried about, but obviously this was the easiest. If you guys want to speak up on LaMelo Ball and why he would be good for this award, go ahead, but I do want to save some time for this last segment.
Go ahead, Spencer.
Yeah, I had Bryce McGinn. No, I'm just kidding. No, I've got
James
LaMelo
Book
Ball
Night.
as well. Yeah. No, I've got LaMelo. I have a really, really good feeling about this season for him. Last year was just the season from hell for a few different reasons. But there's a lot of stuff coming down the pike. So, yes, we'll have plenty of time to talk about everything that's in LaMelo's future and hopefully Charlotte's together. But I really think this guy is got a chance to make another all-star team this year.
Yeah, agreed. I think LaMelo pretty obviously. I mean, he's still young, 22 years old or whatever, still getting better. He's the best creator on this offense. He's one of the best passers in the league, big time shooter. The shot selection, not great at times, especially last season, but at other times in his career, but he can really shoot off the catch. If he could make a leap as a pull-up guy, a downhill finisher, get stronger, that type of stuff, lock in a little bit more defense. There's just some places like for low-hanging fruit for him to improve. And I would also say this, I'm a big fan of Tyrese Halliburton. Okay. I've liked him since his freshman year at Iowa State. I watched him play on 2019 on the U19 USA team. That is like one of the all-time junior FIBA teams. Like, you're going to look back in 10 years, look at that roster and just cackle seeing Cade Cunningham, Halliburton, Evan Mobley, Scotty Barnes, Jalen Green, just a ridiculous team that the USA assembled. But I love Halliburton. He's awesome. He was so much fun to watch play for Team USA in the FIBA World Cup this summer. And he had an amazing all-star year for Indiana. I do kind of hope LaMelo has been noticing that people have all of a sudden been sort of treating those two guys like there's a huge gap between Tyrese Halliburton and LaMelo Ball.
Yep, 100%.
Especially considering the fact that LaMelo Ball is almost 2 years younger than Tyrese Halliburton. And Tyrese Halliburton got to play in Rick Carlisle's, awesome offense last season, while LaMelo, as Spencer just said, had the year from hell with injuries, and just really the context around him could not have been worse. Those two guys to me are they're on the same tier. And if there was a gap at one point, it was LaMelo by a little bit. Maybe it's Halliburton by a little bit. But that story is far from over. And I just would hope that a guy as good as LaMelo, a really, really, really special young player, that maybe he paid attention and was seeing where people were discussing a guy like Halliburton, where guys when these top, ranking the X number of best players in the league, there's been kind of some disrespect, in my opinion, thrown in the direction of LaMelo Ball. So I kind of hope he's kept an eye on that, and sort of specifically in the ways that Halliburton, who there's some similarities between those two. They entered the league at the same year. They have some similar things that they do, but Halliburton just is, I think, in a lot of ways a media darling. LaMelo obviously has a huge following too, but I just would love to see what LaMelo's move is with the way that that tug of war goes this season.
Yeah, maybe you can use that as motivation moving forward. But I would agree, Brian. It seems like the gap appears bigger when you think about the NBA discussion online, but I don't think it actually is.
Yeah.
So here's what we're going to do, guys. We're going to do some NBA awards trivia. And you guys are going to be pitted against each other, Brian versus Spencer. And I have 6 questions, and I've numbered them 1 through 6. I have to give credit to the Athletics podcast, Saturday Slam and Jam. They have Saturday episodes where they do trivia on most of their episodes. Now, trivia is nothing new, but it's the format in which they do it. So, just to kind of give you the rules, Spencer, you'll go first.
Mhm.
You pick a number 1 through 6, and I will read that question. If you get it correct, you get a point. If you get it incorrect, Brian will have a chance to steal for half a point. And I'll just tally up the points at the end of them all. And hopefully these trivia questions are correct and I did not mess up in my research here. So some of these are Hornets related, or I try to tie in, the state of Charlotte or the city of Charlotte, excuse me, or the Hornets into these. So Spencer, question 1 through 6, pick a number.
All right, let's go 5.
Question number 5. Here we go. Listen carefully. Although there are a handful of players who are all-stars, the most improved player award is typically not filled with star players. And actually, there's only been one player who has won this award that's also in the Basketball Hall of Fame. So there's one most improved player that's also in the Basketball Hall of Fame. He played some of his high school basketball at Mount Zion Christian Academy in North Carolina and won this award while with the Magic.
I know this one.
This would be Tracy McGrady.
You are correct. So it's a point in Spencer's favor. Brian, question number 5 is off the board, but you can go ahead and give me another question number.
Let's do 3.
3. Okay, this one's a little bit different because this is actually potentially worth 1.5. Sorry, Spencer. You'll see why in a second. Okay, question 3. The Charlotte Hornets.
I'm going Maury Ball on trivia here.
Yeah, there's another one like this. So
chucking threes here.
This feels a little bit fixed.
Yeah. There's another one. There's another one like this. You just got to find it, Spencer.
Yeah.
The Charlotte Hornets / Bobcats have had 3 Rookie of the Year winners. I will give you a half a point, Brian, for each player that you can name who has won this award.
Okay. LaMelo Ball.
Ding, ding, ding.
Yeah, that one's a little bit easier. Larry Johnson.
Correct.
And then there's one other guy that I was thinking about here. Emeka Okafor.
That is correct. So you're at 1.5 points. Hopefully the Bobcats probably gave it away there, but
I was going to say Baron Davis if you got that wrong. Okay.
All right, Spencer, you can pick 1, 2, 4, or 6.
Well, need to find that gold. The 1.5 gold here. Let's go 1.
Ooh, that was not the one. Okay, but this to me is probably I don't want to jinx you here, but this is one of the easier ones, I think. This player is the only Charlotte Hornets player to win the NBA All-Star MVP. He scored 24 points in the second half of this game, breaking Wilt Chamberlain's 23 points in a single half in an All-Star game. So this was back in Cleveland. I'm not going to tell you the year, but the only Charlotte Hornets player to win MVP in the All-Star game.
I hope I don't outthink myself here. I mean, it's one of 2 guys. Is it Larry Johnson? No, it's Alonzo Mourning.
Can I steal?
No,
can I steal?
Neither. Go ahead and steal.
Glenn Rice.
It is Glenn Rice for half a point.
Gosh.
All right.
Wow.
You got
what year was that? That was a really good
97.
one.
97.
I completely forgot about that. Jeez. All
right. Go ahead, Brian. 2, 4, or 6.
Let's go 4.
Oh gosh, he found the other one. Okay, this one actually is pretty interesting, and obviously, Spencer, you still have a chance to steal if he does not get any of these. Since 1982, 1983, they've been handing out the Defensive Player of the Year. While no Charlotte Hornets player has ever won this award, shockingly, there have been 3 players who have won this award, but who have also at one point played in Charlotte. So they didn't win in Charlotte, but at one point in their career, they did play for Charlotte, if that makes any sense.
Oh man, yeah, that one's whew.
So you said 3?
Yeah, there have been 3 players that have won Defensive Player of the Year who also at one point have played in Charlotte.
Okay.
But they didn't win it with Charlotte.
Well, one of them is Dwight Howard.
That is correct. That's up half a point.
Yeah, that's one of the easier ones. Oh man. Tyson Chandler.
Wow, that's the one that I did not think that you would get.
Tyson Chandler.
That's another half point.
Shoot. This is tough now.
I do think I know this one. I think.
Is it Stacey Augman?
Oh, that's well, I like that. I like that guess. Is this Plastic Man? Was that his nickname?
Yeah, the Elastic Man.
No, that is not the answer. So Dwight Howard, a half a point. Tyson Chandler, a half a point. Spencer, you get a chance to steal for half a point.
Is it Robert Parrish?
No.
Yeah.
Did he win Defensive Player of the Year? If he did, then I'm mistaken. But
I don't think he was. I don't think he won Deep Boy.
Okay. But that's not a bad guess.
Was it Morning?
Alonzo
Morning. God, that was such a. Oh man,
that was kind of more obvious than I was thinking.
Yeah, we like Galaxy Brain that one, Spencer.
Yeah, I was gonna say Derek Coleman next. Yeah,
Matt Geiger. We're just listing off '90s and early aughts centers. Bismack Biyombo. Man, Zoe is. I feel bad about. So I guess he won it in Miami.
Miami twice.
I thought maybe Parrish would have gotten one in Boston. I don't.
Yeah.
All
right, Spencer, you are up. You have an option between 2 and 6.
Are there any more point and a half?
I don't. No. These are all singular answers.
Let's go 2.
All right, question number 2. 3 coaches are tied for the most Coach of the Year awards with 3. 2 of those are Pat Riley and Greg Popovich. The third one, maybe a little bit less known for the younger crowd, but he might be best known for his days in Dallas. But he actually won his award in Milwaukee, where he began his career, and when he ended his career with the Golden State Warriors, that's where his career ended. So name that coach. He coached in Dallas, he coached in Milwaukee, and he ended his career with the Warriors.
He's no longer coaching?
He is no longer coaching.
Yeah, I believe he's a business owner in Hawaii now. If this is who I'm thinking of.
Yes. Why am I having a brain freeze right now? I'm looking at his face and his beard in my head. I'm literally looking at his face.
I'll give you a clue.
Guy. Okay.
He coached Baron Davis with the Warriors.
Yeah, he played for the Celtics too back in the day.
I'm literally. Oh my gosh. Yeah, he's a hippie now. I can see his face.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, he
owns. Why am I blanking on his name?
Yeah, he's like a weed guy in Hawaii now. I'm pretty sure.
If it's any consolation, Spencer, even if you get this right, there's no way mathematically you can get this.
Yeah,
I know you're stressing over it.
I'm just literally blanking on his name, but I can see his face. Anyways, tell me because I can't figure it out right now.
Oh well, I guess Brian, you get a chance to steal.
Don Nelson.
When you said Dallas, hey coach, I was going to say Rick Carlisle because I would imagine he's got at least 2.
I don't know how many he has, but yeah, I think of Carlisle and Dallas more than I do so in Indiana. But
for sure.
Don Nelson, living his best life.
Yeah, retirement seems to have done him well. Honestly, good for him.
All right, I guess question 6 will go to you, Brian, and we'll finish it off. You can get 1 point, or Spencer can steal it for half a point. There have been a handful of times that a Charlotte Hornets player has made the all-defensive team. Although there's only one player who has won it twice. I guess not won it, but has been on the all-defensive team twice in a Charlotte uniform. Name that player.
Crash Gerald Wallace.
I believe he's only done it once, but that's a good guess.
Dang. All right. Never mind.
Any guesses, Spencer? A player on Charlotte who's won it twice, been on the all-defensive team twice in Charlotte.
Man.
Late 90s.
Oh, I know who it is. Yeah. Dang.
He won his other one in the Lakers. He won his other one with the Lakers.
Steals machine.
Steals guy.
Machine. Yeah. Temple. That's a good one.
Steals machine. Went to Temple. Yeah, that doesn't tip me off. I do not know this one.
Eddie Jones.
Eddie Jones.
Eddie Jones.
99. And,
wow.
2000.
See, I would have as I get older, I would have pegged Eddie Jones as more of like an offensive award kind of guy. Wow. Okay.
I remember from like my young, like early fantasy basketball days, he was always like a sneaky guy because he hit threes and got steals. Like that's what I'm drawing from to remember that actually. I
almost guessed Bobby Phills, but yeah, when you said late 90s, I was like, no, that takes that out. Interesting. That was fun. That was a good game.
Yeah, good. Love a little trivia here and there.
Hopefully, I was accurate in my statements, and there was not someone out there that maybe you guys guessed a correct answer, and I'm just wrong. But
well, I'm a very poor loser, so the first thing I'm going to do when this podcast ends is go fact check all of this.
Yes,
yeah. I'm pulling up Don Nelson's basketball reference page right now. I got Wikipedia up on the phone too,
and the fact that Brian got both of those questions that were worth 1.5.
Yeah, before you Spencer is going to be by next week. Spencer is going to be at a basketball camp in China, saying that he'll never ever play trivia or appear on a podcast with Richie or Brian ever again. So,
or I'll be in China at a Buffalo Wild Wings playing basketball.
Yeah.
One or the
other. One of the two. One of the two. By the way, salute to Kelly Oubre, the newest member of the Philadelphia 76ers. He'll have a couple good games for them next season. End of analysis. I really do think that I tweeted about this yesterday, but just like this Ramona Shelburne report that came out a couple of weeks ago, and she was on the Low Post the other day talking about it, how like Embiid is intrigued by playing like having a system in Philadelphia that's like a little bit closer to, Jokic in Denver, which like really that comes down to like, Embiid doesn't actually want to play that way. He doesn't pass as well as Jokic. No. And also like James Harden doesn't want to play that way either, like moving without the ball, zipping off a bunch of dribble handoffs during every possession. But like bringing in a Kelly Oubre type as like the first signing, like 8 days after Joel Embiid is like, wow, we should do more read and react motion stuff on offense. It's like, no, not based off of these this most recent addition is that going to come to fruition. But look, Kelly's got tools. He's athletic. He can shoot off movement. You can do some pin downs and handoff stuff with him, and he'll get hot a couple of nights per season. But like anything more than that, I don't know. This just does really look like. I hope it's not the case. Like I want Embiid to stay in Philadelphia, but man, this is like set up to be like end stage, for Embiid. Like, this is just like all this, like that notification hit my phone when I was on a walk yesterday, and I was like, oh God, like this is
it's time to create the world's largest red carpet from Philadelphia to New York. Yeah, because this is about to happen. I can't wait for the Kelly Oubre Ball is Life YouTube video in like early February where he goes off for like 30 in the second half and the Sixers win by 2 or something. It's like, see, told you guys, this guy's not washed up.
We were joking during the season at some point, like on one of the pods, how much like Oubre's agent must have been hammering home that like he was averaging 20 points per game, which like is true. Like it's objectively true. Like he averaged 20 points per game on, however many shots with an insane usage rate. Granted, like, that's what the coaching staff was asking him to do. Like they needed someone to absorb those possessions, and they were so depleted on the wing that it became Oubre. So like, I'm not even like blaming Kelly. It's just like, it was so funny to see like in the Woj tweet, it being like, Kelly Oubre averaged 20 points per game. I could just imagine as
Copy
Oubre's-
paste from the agency.
100%. But with a note from the agent being look, make sure you mention 20 points per game. You know what I mean? Make sure you get that in there. But yeah, all of that just kind of made me laugh a little bit.
World.
I don't know. Let's just hope for a jump from Tyrese Maxey this season. I want Philadelphia to be good and work, but I don't know. I'm worried, and the addition of Kelly Oubre does not assuage some of my worst anxieties for how that team could play out this season.
Yeah, and they lost a really good player in Jalen McDaniels as well. So,
wait, remind me who signed
Toronto.
That's right.
Yeah.
Jeez.
Yeah.
I still can't get over that one. That trade was just.
It's just it is stupid. It is bad.
All right.
Yeah.
All right, guys, we're gonna go ahead and wrap here. I hope you guys enjoyed this episode. Let us know on Twitter, on X, whatever you want to call it these days, how we did with these awards, and you guys can definitely give Spencer a hard time for the trivia answer. So, for Brian, for Spencer, I'm Richie. We'll talk to you.